The poet is discussing about the nature, which is a thing of beauty and a source of pleasure, right? Uh, the poet tries to present the idea that everything that presents in the nature is a thing of beauty, and those beauty are considered as a constant source of pleasure, right? Now, uh, when we talk about the nature, what do we find out? Now, the elements present in the nature is something called as the sun. The poet talks about the sun, the moon, old and young trees. Even the poet takes the name of the daffodil flowers, right? Uh, the poet also talk about the brook or small streams with clear water. Even the poet also talk about mass of ferns and the blooming musk roses. The poet constantly stating one idea that all of them are things of beauty and they are considering as a constant source of joy and pleasure. So that is the thing that he tries to present through the means poem, right? Now, when we talk about the thing of beauty, uh, which is written by John Keats, and we also know that he is a romantic poet. So, what do we draw actually? So, uh, his poetry is characterized by, sensual imagery. Sensual imagery. Sensual means called as through the sense. You imagine the kind of images he presented through this poem, right? So, and this poem is considering as one of the most popular works in the series of odes, Odes, which means called as a song, right? So, his poems are one of the most beautiful creations in English literature, right? So, if you talk about John Keats, uh, he was a poet of romantic period. You can talk about during the time period of 1818, right? And a thing of beauty, you find out it's nothing but one of the means extracts taken from the epic poem, right? So even you can say that means the epic poem name is called as Endymion, Endymion, Endymion. So if you look into it, that what is that Endymion? Now, Endymion is a poem which is written by John Keats, first published in 1818. By whom? By the another poet, which is called as a Taylor and Hassey of Fleet Street in London, right? So John Keats wrote this poem and dedicated this poem to the late poet Thomas. You can talk about Chatterton. Chatterton. So the poem begins with, in that poem, the poem begins with the line called as a thing of beauty is a joy forever, right? So from that source, from that particular poem, so this extract is taken, right? So therefore, if you talk about the theme of the poem, it is nothing but a kind of a message which is given to the society that beauty never diminishes. Beauty never diminishes or called as a fades or called as a hazy, right? So we can choose to see beauty uh, in the most simple and common things around us. But this beauty becomes a source of what? Unending joy for us. That is what the poet tries to present through this poem, right? So, You can also say that this poem is nothing but based on a Greek legend, right? Where a young shepherd whose name is called as Endymion, like I stated, Endymion is the nothing but an epic poem which is written by John Keats. Now, who is this and why the name of the poem is called as Endymion? Now, because there is a kind of a story behind it, which is stated a Greek legend where a young shepherd, so whose name is called as Endymion, who had a vision, right, or goal of the moon goddess, right, whose name is called as a Cynthia, moon goddess, whose name is called as a Cynthia, right? So he made a commitment to go after her, means Cynthia, and seek her, desire her. So in his quest, in his search, so he wanders into the woods and under the sea also. Now, obviously, it seems like a kind of a folk tales or a fairy tales, but this is something kind of a story behind it. So here the poet tells us that beautiful things bring pleasure and happiness and give us an excessive abundance of good reasons to feel happy and energetic. Beauty is like what? A tonic and an endless fountain of nectar, 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 resulting in continuous joy. So it actually fulfills your desire. It satisfies your inner soul. It also takes away, means an individual's sadness, and also gives us many happy reasons to enjoy. That is the reason, means this poem through line by line describes the benefit that you find out from the nature, right? So while you are looking into the poem, you will find out the rhyming scheme. Do you find out any rhyming scheme in this poem, or is it the free verse?
AABB type.
AABB?
AABB. AABBCCDD.
Okay. Now, let me point out here the rhyming scheme of the poem is called as AABBC, right? How? Like you find out the word is given as a forever, never, right? So keep, sleep, right? Keep asleep, and then after breathing, like you stated in the first stanza, we find out forever, never, keep asleep, and breathing. So these are called as means 5 words at the end of the lines. So that is what called as AABBC, right? So if you go to the second stanza, wreathing earth, dearth, days, right? Wreathing earth, dearth, days, wage, all pearl, then spirits, right? So you also find out that called as a moon boon, daffodils reels, make break. Then after blooms, dooms, dead read, drink. First one. The first stanza stated about what? The first stanza stated that a thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases, it will never pass into nothingness, but will keep a bower quiet for us and asleep, full of sweet dreams and health and quiet breathing. Now, what do you find out in this particular part? Now, when we are talking about this particular part where it is stated about a thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness, but will keep a bower quiet for us and a sleep full of sweet dreams and health and quiet breathing. Now, what do you mean by bower? It's called as a shady place under the tree, right? So the poet believes in the fact that beauty stays forever and never fades away, right? It never goes off. That's what it is stated. Its loveliness increases. So the word loveliness means that called as the beauty present in the nature. So that stays forever. It will never pass into nothingness. So when you say that nothingness, it means called as means fades away. It does not fade away, right? So or you can say that means हाँ कौन ला कौन पठेगी कहाँ को पठेगी अरे नेट तो अच्छी ना को फोटो उठी पठेगी लकी को ना हरी पे के कड़ा अभी क्या दरकार Leave it. Okay, sorry again. It seems like today is a kind of a day of hustle bustle. Uh, so, what do we want to convey through this particular stanza? Are you there, Aditi?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when we talk about that a thing of beauty is a joy forever, the poet wants to convey a message that the poet says that, or the poet believes that beauty stays forever. It never fades away, or called as a, according to the poet believes in the fact that beauty stays forever and it never decreases. It never goes off with the passing time, right? Rather, but will keep a bower quiet for us and asleep. So here it is stated that it increases and beautifies more and more. So he compares means beauty with a shady place. So shady place means here the poet is stated a bower. The meaning of bower is called as a shady place under the tree, but will keep a bower quiet for us and asleep, full of sweet dream and health for quiet breathing. So the poet compares the beauty with a steady place that gives us the comfort, that gives us to to fall asleep and dream and quietly breathing, and that will lead to good health. So similar to that, the beauty presence around the nature or in the nature, that also gives us the same kind of a comfortability. That is the reason the poet here stated means, but will keep a bower quiet for us and a sleep full of sweet dreams and health and quiet breathing. So the poem means the first stanza of the poem makes us the realization that means beauty is something present in the nature, makes the happiness in the means in the mind of the poet, and that's why the poet stated that means the beauty is something which is increases in the nature, it will not decreases, or it will not means it will not go to or pass over to any other things. But at the same time, nature is means nature's beauty is comparing with the a shady place under the tree, right? That provides a traveler, that provides a person to get a peace, right? To take us means to take rest, as well as means see the beautiful or sweet dreams. and means that makes the traveler or called as a person under the tree means feels a kind of a comfortability and take a relax, right? Similar to that, to enjoy the beauty or to see the beauty of the nature can also provide the same kind of a happiness or same kind of a joy. Am I clear? Do you get that point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, can you point out that when you look into this first stanza, so you find out certain things are there. That is called as a means the poet used the word mm, a thing of beauty is a joy forever. Loveliness increases, it will never pass into nothingness, but will keep a bower quiet for us and asleep, full of sweet dreams and health and quiet breathing. Right. So the word like sleep, the word like sweet, and a sleep full of sweet dreams. So in that case, here you find out the word called as a sleep and sweet, which is presenting with the idea of a saucer, right? That makes the alliteration point, right? So the consonant sound at the start of the two words, right, which are close in series, which is indicating that, but will keep a bower quiet for us, asleep full of sweet dreams, right? And health and quiet breathing. So here the term which is known as a sleep and sweet, known as a nothing but a alliteration example. So the poet also used the word called as a metaphor. So as we understood, the comparison of bower with the comparison with nature, right? Which is clearly indicating a kind of a metaphor. The poet stated that bower quiet. It means calmness of the bower is compared to the calming effect of a beautiful thing, right? So calmness of the bower. So here bower is referring as a steady place under the tree, right? That provides the kind of a pleasant, that provides the kind of a relaxation, that provides the kind of a so means sweet dream, right? And that provides a kind of a good sleep, is equivalent to the kind of a beauty present in the nature. So therefore, means without usage of art and light, the poet compares means bower with the nature is purely an example of metaphor. Right? Now, coming to the second stanza. Please, Aditi, ask me the question if you have any doubt in this particular means point. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the second stanza stated that, therefore, on every morrow, right? So here the meaning of morrow is called as the following day. So the poet uses the kind of a concluding statement. Therefore, on every following day, right, or every tomorrow, are we wreathing a flowery band to bind us to the earth, spite of despondence of the inhuman dearth, of noble natures, of the gloomy days, of all the unhealthy and over darkened ways, made for our searching. Yes, in spite of all, some shape of beauty moves away the pall, right, from our dark spirits. Now, here you find out couple of words like morrow. Morrow means called as the following day or tomorrow. Or you also find out another word called as a wreathing, WREATHING, which means called as a decorating, surrounding, right? You also find out the word called as a despondence. If you talk about despondence, despondence means called as a rejected or called as a depressed or called as a means a kind of a dislike, right? So that is the meaning of what the word called as a despondence. The poet also used the word called as a gloomy. The meaning of gloomy days is called as a sad days. So at the beginning of the line of the second stanza, when the poet stated that, therefore on every morrow means in every day, right? Are we reading a flowery band? So to bind us to the earth. So the poet stated that everyday beauty flies our heart. When we see the nature, so beauty flies our heart to enjoy each and every moment, and constructs our desires, to forget those of the sad days. And even if we are surrounded by sadness, or called as a melancholy things, and even some of the bad people, right? So according to the poet, the reason behind sadness and cruel people is called as a negativity presence around us, right? All around. And to, means avoid these, we need to enjoy each and every moment of our life, because these beautiful things bring prosperity and also positivity in the mind of human being. So therefore, when he used the line called as a therefore on every morrow or every following day, means we are reading of Band to bind us to the earth. It means called as we are surrounded or decorated with the nature, right? So to bind us to the earth, nature that is present everywhere in the earth, in spite of despondence, in spite of dejectedness, in spite of rejected, or in spite of, you can say that depression of the inhuman dirt. Inhuman dirt means called as a lack of humanity, right? So the poet stated that we present ourselves, we present around the people of negativity, we means live a kind of a life of sadness, right? But in the noble natures, you won't find out that inhuman dirt. Inhuman dirt means that called as a inhumanity, means no kindness. Dirt means called as a scarcity, right? Lack of. So you may find out the lack of humanity among the people you surrounded, but you won't find out that the same kind of means bad qualities, right? Or melancholy or sadness when you are present yourself in the noble natures, right? That is what he said. In spite of dejectedness, of the inhuman dearth of noble natures, of the gloomy days, of all the unhealthy and over darkened ways. So here, unhealthy and over darkened ways is the clear symbol of what means negative minded people and melancholy situation. So made for our searching, yes, in spite of all, some shape of beauty means makes us some shape of beauty, make us what? Away from the means pearl from our dark spirit. So eradicated, eliminated, and makes us forget to those of the dark spirits. Dark spirits means negativity, right? That is what the poet stated in the second stanza. Are you listening to me?
Yes, sir.
So that is what the point. Again, let me repeat this idea. The idea is simple. It is stated in the first stanza that what means how the poet says that beauty stays forever, right? It never decreases or it never fades away. It increases with the uh, changing of time, or in the course of time, or in the passing time. right? The idea of the poet regarding beauty is that means beauty never goes off with the passing time. Rather, it beautifies more and more and increases, right? For the poet, means you can say beauty is like what? Beauty is like a shady tree, right? Uh, under which means under whose shade you will find out all the creatures can take rest peacefully and enjoy good health, right? So in the second stanza the poet again says that every day, right, or every other day, it is the beauty which fills us happiness in us, right? So it is the beauty which builds the desire in us to live, means though there are some of the melancholy situation or sad moments and some of the negative minded people or cruel people around us. So here the poet wants to say that without beauty the earth will nothing but filled with what kind of a people? Cruel people and bad atmosphere, sad and gloomy moments, right? It is the nature or beauty of the nature which is created by God, and that's what is called as helping us to remove the sadness from our hearts and makes us prosper or called as a positive, right? So that is what you would find out. Now, once you look into the second stanza also carries with some of the literary devices in this part. What is that? The first thing is called as a anaphora. When you say about anaphora, what do you mean by anaphora? Anaphora is nothing but same word in two consecutive lines, right? Let's say that how come here? Now, if you talk about therefore on every morrow are we ready, right? Of noble nature of all the unhealthy. Look into the fourth line of the second stanza where it is clearly mentioned of noble natures of the gloomy days of all the unhealthy and over darkened ways. So the word of, which is a preposition, two times repeated in that stanza, is the example of anaphora, right? The poet also uses alliteration in this second stanza where he mentioned that uh, when you are talking of, sorry, hello?
Some shape of beauty can be alliteration.
Yes, some shape, even band, bind. Do you see that where it is written band to bind, B-A-N-D, band to bind? That is also called as one of the alliteration. Noble nature, right? Noble nature, that is also called as one of the alliteration example, right? So band to bind, noble nature, and you also find out that's called as a, what do you say that? Band, bind, noble nature, samshay. These are the three phrases which you find out in this line or in this stanza are the examples of alliteration. Even the poet also used metaphor. How metaphor? Now, because when he uses the word called as a wreathing, Wreathing, wreathing a flowery band, right? So when he talks about wreathing a flowery band, so which means called as a surrounded. Wreathing means called as a surrounded or decorated. Decorated a flowery band, which means the beautiful things of our life bind us to the earth, right? So that is what means here the flowers which are considered as the beautiful part of the nature, right? Similar to that, it is compared with the human beings, right? Life also covered with the beautiful things, right? And both were compared to each other, and that is what known as a metaphor. The beautiful things uh, appeared in the nature of the earth, and the beautiful things present in the human's life Both are compared here, that wreathing of flowery band, and that's why it is known as a metaphor. The poet also used in this particular context imagery, images, natural image, by creating a sensory effect of beautiful things lined up in a string. When he said that a flowery band to binders, so when he said that a flowery band to binders, it makes us the sense that the idea of the beautiful flowers present in the or appeared in the nature. So that is known as images. What kind of images? That called as a image of flowers or image of beautiful flowers present, means appeared in the earth, right? Or appeared in the nature. The poet also used another poetic device that's called as a inversion. When we talk about inversion, we can say that the normal order of words, which is reversed, right? Normal order of words, which is reversed. Like instead of saying, we are reading a flowery band, the poet uses the line called as, are we reading a flowery band? Now, it is not a question. It is generally a particular sentence. Now, this sentence is written in the form of what? Means inversion form, right? And that's why it is known as called as a inversion, right? Are we, look at the first line of the second stanza where it is stated, therefore on every morrow, are we reading a flowery band to bind us to the earth? Now, that is what known as a inversion, when the line is written in a reverse order, right? Am I clear? Am I clear, Aditi?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let's go for the third stanza. So the third stanza stated that such the sun, the moon, trees old and young, sprouting a steady boon. For simple ship and such are daffodils, with the green world they live in, and clear rills, that for themselves a cooling covert make. Again, you find out alliteration. Cooling covert make. Against the hot season, the mid forest break. Right. Now, we all know that when we talk about such the sun, the moon, right? So here, the poet is taking the example means of what elements present in the nature. That's called as a sun, that also known as the moon, that also known as the old and young trees, that also known as a sprouting a steady boon, right? So these are the nothing but elements of the nature that produces sprouting. The meaning of sprouting is called as a, means gradually produces a steady boon. The meaning of steady boon is called as a blessing. Boon or bane. Boon means called as a blessing, right? For simple sheep and such are daffodils. For simple sheep, that's something called as animals, or called as a flowers called daffodils. With the green world they live in. So they live in this nature. They live in this earth, or they are the gift of the nature. And the clear rills, here the meaning of clear rills is nothing but a brook, a small stream of the lake or river, right? That for themselves a cooling covert make, right? Against the hot season, the mid forest break. So the poet here explains that beauty is all around us in earthly things. We just need to see that, to enjoy those of the things. These are nothing but the nature's gifts. Like you talk about sun, like you talk about moon, like you talk about young and older trees, right? So providing us with what? Providing us with the shade, right? That's something called as a shady place, that also provide beauty, that also provide coolness, right? and are considered to be the blessing for human civilization or humanity. So these are blessings that we need to enjoy every moment to keep away ourselves from the negative situations, right? That is what the poet stated. So if you talk about the poet stated means the mid forest break, it means called as a process of slow down or halt, right? So the third stanza is a beautiful idea that brings with nothing but examples of the nature and stating that how these uh, means how these are the elements present in the nature provide nothing but the kind of a blessings to the humanity, right? So that is what the poet stated in the third stanza. So in the third stanza, you also find out certain literary devices, like you can talk about alliteration, which I have already pointed, means called as a, what is that? Cooling covert, CC, right? Use of even simple ship, right? Or called as a sprouting shady. So S are called as just means S is called as a sprouting ship shady, and also known as a simple ship, and also known as a cooling covert. So these are the three phrases are known as a alliteration. The poet also uses in the third stanza the word called the poetic device called as a imagery. So the poet stated that how the natural images found out here by giving the idea called as a trees giving shade. The poet also used the sun. The poet also used moon. The poet also say young and old trees. The poet also stated that clear reels that called as a clean river streams, right? Uh, so and also daffodils with the green world, right? So these are all called as examples of the imagery. But here in the third stanza, you would find out the new poetic device is used that is called as antithesis, right? So what do you mean by antithesis? Now, the poet sometimes uses certain kind of words to make the rhyming perfect in the poem. That is why the poet uses the word in a different order, right? So, are called as opposite words together placed in a one particular line. That is called as old and young. And that's known as a antithesis. The meaning of antithesis is called as when two of the words which are opposite to each other used in the poem is known as a antithesis, right? So that's what you would find out.
Sir,
Yes. Yeah, tell
so
me.
then what is the difference between antithesis and oxymoron?
Well, let me point out oxymoron is referring as a two different emotions appeared, right? Two different emotions appeared in the means on the face of a person, right? Or called as in a particular situation. Like oxymoron is found in the poem called as a photograph. In that poem, you would find out how the poet presents two of the emotions. One side the happiness and the other side is called as a sadness or melancholy. And both appears at the same time. But antithesis means called as a means two different theories are presented or two opposite theories are presented in the line to make the poem perfect, right? Are you listening to me?
Yes, sir.
Did you read that poem called as a photograph? Hello.
No, sir, no.
Okay. So in that poem, you will find out oxymoron is present. No issue. Uh, so antithesis is called as a two different. Anti means against. Theory is called as a antithesis is called as a theory, right? So two different opposite theories are presented in a poem. And here you find out old and young, which are called as opposite to each other, present in the poem. Right? That is why it is known as a means antithesis. Now, let's move to the last stanza. The last stanza stated that rich with a sprinkling of fair musk rose blooms, and such too is the grandeur of the dooms we have imagined for the mighty dead. All lovely tales that we have heard or read, an endless fountain of immortal drink pouring unto us from the heaven's brink. Right. Now, look into it. What does it say? Rich with a sprinkling of fair musk rose blooms. Right. So, and such too is the grandeur of the dooms. Now, when you talk about grandeur, the meaning of grandeur is called as a splendor, something which is called as a remarkable, right? So, remarkable of the dooms. We have imagined for the mighty dead, right? Mighty is something called as a huge or enormous, right? All lovely stories that we have heard or read, right? So, an endless fountain of immortal drink. Immortal drink means that something called as a never dying or called as a something which is not been fed, right? Pouring unto us from the heaven's brink. Heaven's brink means heaven's edge. So the poet carries forward his idea of gifts. The poet carries what? Carries forward his idea of gifts of nature, right? So present on the earth. That is what he stated, rich with a sprinkling of fair musk rose blooms. So it means the earth is providing with a means rich amount of what? Rich amount of means natural beauty, right? Spread everywhere, right? So like beautiful musk of roses, beautiful musk of roses means that called as a bunch of rose flower, right? So that are giving a nice and sweet fragrance, right? That are giving what? Nice and sweet fragrance. Fragrance means a smell. So further, the poet also describes that, and such too is the grandeur of the dooms, right? We have imagined for the mighty dead all lovely stories that we have heard or read. It means further describes the stories of the valiant. Valiant means called as someone who is courageous enough, right? Valiant comrades. So that's something courageous soldiers who, who laid their lives for the nation of humanity, right? So these beautiful things are compared with them like nectar which are immortal, right? And need to be enjoyed in spite of having many sorrows or sadness in our life. So what this particular stanza tries to point out. Now the poet further carries on with the description of the more beautiful things present on earth, right? So the poet describes that how the means called as a bunch of or called as a bulk of, right, beautiful musk roses which have such a nice fragrance is called as a smell, right? Then the poet describes the stories of the means mighty warrior, right, called as a who fought for the country, right, who sacrificed their lives for their countries or called as for humanity, right? So the poet says that these beautiful things are the gifts from the God for all of us, right? So they are like a nectar, right? Nectar given by gods, right, to us. And these are nothing but those beauties which are means immortal. They do not end. They provide us the endless service and provide us a reason to live on this earth. Having so many sorrows, in our life. So despite you have a lot of means sadness or melancholy, grief, right? Yet also the kind of means encouragement, the kind of means inspiration, beauty provide to us is called as a means cannot be described in the word, right? So that's what the poet presented through this last stanza. Rich with a sprinkling of fair musk rose blooms, and such too is the grandeur of the dooms, right? Grandeur is called something called as just remarkable, right? Of the dooms. We have imagined for the mighty dead. So mighty dead means called as a people who have a valiant attitude or called as a courageous attitude, right? And who sacrificed their lives for the country or called as a humanity, right? All lovely stories tells means stories that we have heard or we have read. So an endless fountain of immortal drink. An endless means something which continue. So flow of means immortal drink. So they are not going to end. Pouring unto us from the heaven's brink, right? So they are leading us to make our life peaceful. So, so, and changing our life from sadness to happiness, right? That is what the means last stanza described in such a beautiful manner, right? So, if you talk about the what called as a dooms or called as a immortal, right? If you talk about heaven's brink, that's something called as a the door of God's home. Immortal living means living forever. So dooms, that's a doomsday, that called as a last day of existence. So all such kind of a things are nothing but indicating that how nature means makes makes humans life beautify through its contribution to the humanity or to the means to the human civilization. That's what you will find out in this point. Now, let me point out, we also find out some of the literary devices in this last and concluding stanza. The first thing is called as again alliteration. You will find out the alliteration is called as a having heard, HH, having heard. Second one is called as a metaphor. That's what is called as immortal drinks. Immortal drinks, indicating that beautiful objects of nature are forever like a never ending portion of a drink. Like you would find out the water presence in the ocean, right? Similar to that means the beautiful objects of the nature are also not going to end. The poet also stated that the rhyme scheme is used in every stanza of the poem, right? There's something called as a forever, never, keep, sleep, dead, read. So like that. So it is a rhyme. The poet also talks about the images or imagery, like you can point out bushes full of musk roses. So when you say that bushes full of musk roses, which means called as a sprinkling of fair, beautiful musk rose that appears and that prospers, right? So even that's what is called as a sensual imagery. So even books describing or stories describing valor of fighters. Valor of fighters means that something called as a means courageous soldiers, right? You also find out grandeur, mighty dead, right? These are the words. God providing us with the best things, right? That also making us to remind that heavens brink, right? All such kind of examples are known as means examples of imagery, right? So at the end of this poem, I just want to point out to one